Hey guys, in today's video I picked up this Johnson 15. I'm sorry guys about the videos. It's been kind of hard. You can see it's been snowing a lot here. But that being said, we're going to jump right into this video and get this Johnson 15 redone. If you guys have been enjoying the videos, please smash the like button down below and subscribe. With that being said, let's get this motor done on the Johnson 15. So the first thing we're going to do is remove the spark plugs and do a compression test, and we're going to see how healthy the power head is before we jump into redoing this engine. Okay, so now what we're going to do is compression test on the top cylinder. And the top cylinder came out to right around 110 pounds, actually right on 110 if you guys can see that. I don't know if you can see on the camera, but so good healthy top cylinder. And we got the same thing right on the bottom cylinder, so you can see here 110 pounds on the bottom cylinder. So now we know we have good compression on both the top and the bottom cylinder. So now we got the spark tester all hooked up. All you want to see is a good solid spark between the gaps. And what I'm going to do is shut off the light so you guys can see it. Okay, so now that I know I have good spark, what I'm going to do is just go in with my borescope camera and check out the cylinders. So now I got my camera here, so basically I'm just going to go in the top cylinder and the bottom cylinder. I'm just going to check what the cylinder walls look like. And this just helps me determine internal damage on an engine. But you can see on this engine, it's actually pretty dang clean. You can see that nice hash marks I always talk about. And even same thing on this side. Very slight scoring, but that's kind of typical until the ring starts seating. But this is actually a really clean cylinder. And for the bottom cylinder, I'm going to have to get that cylinder to bottom dead center so I can get a good clear reading. And same thing in this cylinder. I mean, this engine's really clean. You can see that black stripe right there, or the line. That's just the rings sticking a little bit. But other than that, the cylinder is pretty dang clean and has really nice hash marks in the cylinder walls. No rust, nothing like that. So this is actually a really clean power head, and I had 110 pounds on each cylinder, so that's pretty good. So now that I've verified it's all clear and everything looks good, what I'm going to do now is take off the carburetor, go through the fuel system, and after that, of course, we'll do a water pump and then do the general maintenance. So let's get the carburetor off and see what it's looking like inside of it. So in order to get the carburetor off, we got to do a couple things in order to get it out. So the first thing we have to pull off is the recoil starter. So it's pretty easy. You just got to remove these 3 bolts located right here. So we're just going to pull this off, and then we'll jump into the next step, and then that way you can get to the airbox. So to make your guys' lives easier, I didn't realize this. This is actually me before I'm putting the car back on. But in order to just pull this off, in the video, I just leave it hanging. It's actually pretty simple. I didn't realize how simple it was. But basically on the recoil starter, if you look down here, so if you have it in the down position, there's like this little notch cut out. So you can see right through it. So once you just push this down in this position, you can just pull this rod right out and you can remove the whole recoil starter, and it just makes your life a lot easier to pull the carburetor. So I just want to let you guys know this before you start taking the carb off and letting the recoil start hang, and it makes it a little bit harder. Now, in order to get the airbox off, we're going to remove these two screws right here. They're going to be the flat blades. You pull those out and the airbox will come right out. So to make our lives easier, I've done this a couple times before. So basically, you can see how this throttle linkage works, how they're connected and stuff. But if you look behind it, which it's kind of hard to see, there is actually a nut behind it. And with this linkage in the way, it kind of makes it a pain. So what I do is I remove the top cover of these. So just move all these screws out. You can tilt it and you can pull this linkage off right off this plastic piece because it's just a little oval out and they're connected together. So let's take this off so I can show you what I'm talking about. So once they are all out, I'm going to do this with one hand, but basically you can just take the top of the carburetor, or this cover, and just take it right out. You can just slip it right out. And then basically you can see here, the linkage comes right out. You can see that little hole cut out where the linkage connects. And you can see the linkage hanging right down here, still connected to the other part of the carburetor. And then you can just honestly pull that right out too, so you don't lose this. So now what we can do is remove the two nuts on each side. So there's going to be one here on the left and one on the right that was being blocked by the top piece before. Then we remove the carburetor. The only thing we'll have to really deal with is this choke linkage and the fuel line. Basically, this thing is notched in. You just take the carb, tilt it up. I'll get to that once we actually get into removing the carburetor. But first things first, just remove the fuel line. It makes it pretty easy. Now we're just going to remove the two nuts on each side of the carb. Basically, when you get the carb off the studs, all you want to do is take the carb now and just take it, and so you'll tilt it forward and the carb will just slide right out of the notch. It's pretty easy, so just take your time and just tilt it up and it'll slide right out. So now that we got the carburetor off, what we're going to do is tear it down on the bench and just rebuild it with a new carb kit, and after that we'll reinstall it back on the engine. And of course, just take a flashlight and peek in your reeds, just make sure there's no rust or anything build up in there. And also, just don't forget to remove your base gasket and replace it with the new one that comes in your kit that I'm about to show you. Okay, so now we got the carburetor on the bench. We're ready for a teardown. Of course, we're ready to remove the top cover, so we're not going to have to do this. So you can just stick that to the side for now, and we'll remove off the top base gasket as well. Now, I'm not going to be talking about me going through this too much, so just follow along. But this is going to be the kit we're going to use. I'll have it down in the description for you guys down below. But basically, with that being said, let's tear this down and get it rebuilt. Once you get this jet out, basically on these, you can actually pop out this cap, and it comes with a new kit, so you can actually get to the emulsification tube. I'm not going to do it because this carb's pretty dang clean, but if you really want to, just punch a hole through here with the pick and pop it right out and punch a new one when you're done. Basically what I'm doing here is you just want to thread in the idle mixture screw until it lightly seats, but as you're threading in, just count how many turns it is, and that's going to give you a good starting point of where this carb was set at before. Usually I have them set at 1.5, but this just gives you a good idea where it was set before. Okay, so now everything is disassembled from the carb. What we're going to do is just throw the top end and the bottom end into the ultrasonic cleaner and get it really clean. These carbs are pretty dang clean, but I'm still just going to do it for the sake of the video. So let's get these cleaned and then we're ready to rebuild it. Okay, so now the carburetor, it just came out of cooking in the ultrasonic cleaner. So what we're going to do is rebuild it. I did the top end and I also did the bowl end. Okay, right here. So I did the top end, the bowl end. It turned out really good. I mean, they were pretty clean, but it's kind of nice just to do it. So now what we're going to do is just rebuild it with the kit. Again, I'll have it down in the description for you guys down below. But there is going to be a couple things in here you guys want to make sure you have. So you'll get 2 gaskets. One's going to be for a 99 and one's for a 15, so you want to make sure you use the right one. And, of course, for the top end pieces, there's going to be 3 of them. That could be your one for your carb, just depending on your model. So just take your gaskets and, of course, you're just going to take your old one and just line it up and just make sure whichever one is supposed to go on there. And that's the one you want to use for your carburetor, just because this kit can do a bunch of them. And again, you'll get a new bowl gasket and new needle and seat and a bunch of other stuff too in the thing. Also, I just want to mention, guys, so depending on your model, my model is different, so and your engine can look the same. Some of them have like this Richner fuel pump thing. It's like a little plastic piece in there. So if you guys have this, your car may look different, and you have to basically, there's a gasket that's supposed to go here. It does come in your kit. And it's basically going to look like something like this, and that just goes into the bottom of the bowl, basically like this, and then that Richner goes on top of it, and then it connects into the emulsification tube section. Basically, mine's plugged off and doesn't have it. So basically, other than that, we're just going to rebuild it, and if you have any questions, just drop down in the comments. Once you thread it all the way in, basically I'm just going to thread it all the way out to about 1.5 turns. So I'm just going to count how many revolutions, and that's going to be a good starting point on the engine. So before you guys install this, don't do this like I did. So basically this little linkage piece, you basically want to have this, I talk about it in a couple seconds, but basically you want to have this installed on the black piece before you put the screws on, because you basically hook it into the bottom part of the linkage of the carburetor, and then you install the screws. So before you install the screws, just wait a couple seconds and I'll talk about it, what you want to do. And this is how the carb turned out after rebuilding it with the kit. Turned out looking pretty nice. So now what we're going to do is install it back onto the engine. And of course, right before you install the carburetor, just make sure you put on your new base gasket onto the carb and make sure you remove the old one. So sorry guys, I completely forgot to install this piece, but basically before you put this top cover on, this linkage needs to go through this little hole. So basically it just goes into this hole like this. Let's see if I can just get it in there quick. So you put it in there like this, and then before you put the screws on, you'll take this bottom end and slide it into the bottom hole of the linkage, and then it'll slide in, and then therefore you can put all the screws in. So let me just do that quick, and then we can put the car back on. Once you do it properly, you'll see the linkage is all connected, and when you push on the bottom, it'll move the bottom piece and the throttle is actually able to open. So in order to reinstall this, we're gonna do the reverse steps. So we're gonna put the choke linkage on first. So we're just slide it on, get it connected, and then we can put the car back onto its studs.
You could be in there.
Yeah, I'm here also. It's panel on it. Wanna watch the boys then?
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, that's not supposed to happen. So on these engines, the air boxes, you can see these have these little cutouts, basically for the cable to sit on, because if it doesn't, basically you just saw there, it gets all messed up. Basically, I just taped the crap out of it, and it seems to be working pretty good right now. But basically, what happens if you don't have that in there is that it starts hitting the flywheel when the engine is running. So you can actually see here, you can see where it's been wearing out on the flywheel. It's been cutting the cable. I've seen this actually a lot on a lot of these Johnsons where people work on them. They don't do this. And of course, you also need to put the cable and snap it in the front of the airbox just like this, and it keeps the cable completely away from the flywheel, and nothing can happen to the cable. And therefore, it'll be safe. You don't have to keep replacing the cable because they're kind of a pain to replace them on these Johnsons. All I gotta do then is install the neutral safety switch basically through this slot. So again, just slide it on, and then you just push it in just like this, and then you install the recoil starter, and then that's basically how you get the car back on. And then you can just test to make sure everything works. So when you shift it, you can see the switches, and the recoil starter doesn't allow you to pull it. So this way you can't start the engine in gear. When you're in neutral, you can pull it, therefore you can start the engine. Okay, so now we got the fuel system all sorted out. All we gotta do now is do a water pump. So let's get the lower unit off, and let's change out the water pump and see what it's look like in there. In order to drop the lower unit on these, we're going to have to remove these 3 bolts on each side. There's going to be 6 in total, and the lower unit is going to drop. You're going to do this in the forward position, so make sure you have the engine shifted into forward. And on these, there's a key that you'll see in a second, and once we get to that, I'll talk about more. sorry guys, my camera stopped rolling. So basically when the lower unit drops, so the engine is still in forward, but when you push it down and pull it down, it puts the lower unit into reverse, allowing us to see this key that locks the shift linkage into the upper part of the engine. So you can see here with this light, you can actually see the key right there. So basically when you have the engine in forward still, you pull the lower unit down, it's going to put this into a reverse. So we're going to remove this and get it out, and the engine should drop out. It is pretty stubborn, so just be pretty ready. But once you get that all out, it'll pop right out, and the lower unit's going to come out. And this is basically the key that locks the linkage, the two linkages together from the lower linkage to the top linkage. You can see it's notched, and on the top end, you can see it's notched too, and that screw holds it in, the two pieces together. So now we got the lower unit off, what we're going to do is remove the housing and do a water pump change on this. You hear this water pump, it got pretty destroyed. You actually see one of the fins is actually completely missing. And when I pull it out, you can see the fin's completely missing and stuff. I heard it fall out, but you just want to make sure you find the old one. You try to find it. And this is what a new one compared to an old one looks like. Now that we replaced the water pump, we're going to just install the lower unit back onto the engine. So to install the lower unit, we do the reverse steps. So what we did, so we have the engine into forward, and the lower unit is still in reverse. This allows us to have the keys line up. So basically, when you install it then, so you can see here the key is in reverse and it's in the highest position. So we can line it up, get that in, and then basically we can get the screw in, and it'll hold the lower unit up for not too long. You want to keep it there hanging for so long. And of course, you just want to make sure your water tube's all lined up as well. Basically, when the lower unit's ready to go up, you'll push it up, and it's going to put the lower unit back into forward, making the lower units all line up. And then after that, you can just install one bolt, and the lower units can be secured. Now that the lower unit's secure, we can check our work. So right now the engine is neutral, so the prop spins into neutral. And when I shift the engine into forward, so basically right now, the lower unit will lock into forward, and it's not going to slide or slip or anything like that. And then basically I can shift it back into neutral, and the engine should shift nicely. And again, the prop spins freely, so meaning the engine is in neutral. Now, at the same time spinning the prop, you're going to shift the engine into reverse, and this just allows the gears to line up. And there we go. The loader unit locks it into reverse pretty nicely. Now that we've checked our work, what we can do is install the rest of the bolts and change out the Gearlube on this lower unit. And that right there, guys, is some nasty burnt Gearlube. I don't know if you guys ever smelled burnt Gearlube, but it smells really bad. And yeah, just again, guys, this is what burnt Gearlube looks like, and it definitely needs to be changed. It's a good thing we're changing it. I'm also going to just remove the old spark plugs and replace them with new ones. I'll have the spark plugs down in the description because there's a couple different ones you can use. Okay, so now I just threw new spark plugs in and changed out the gear lube, did all the other basic maintenance. I'm just going to test run the engine, make sure everything runs good. If there's any other problems, then we'll address it at that point. But right now, this is all we're going to do for it in the moment. And so we're just going to fire it up and see what it does. Okay, so now I've got the engine in the tank. We're just going to fire it up and see what it does. And the only things we're going to be messing with is going to be the idle mixer screw located right here on the side of the carburetor. And the only other one is going to be the idle screw located down here. And that's just going to advance the speed of the engine or not. But basically, it's going to be this one a lot of times. Okay, so now the engine's running, doesn't sound too bad, and it's pumping water and everything. Basically what I'm going to do is stick it in gear, and this is going to help with basically finding out where you want it to be idling at when you're like on a boat and you're trying to dock it or something like that. And then you can see down here, you can see the water moving around, seeing where it is in gear. It does sound a little slow, so you might adjust it just slightly. But other than that, it doesn't sound too bad. You can also see it shifts into reverse pretty nicely as well. And the engine, again, it's not stalling or anything, so I'm just going to let it run and see what it does. And basically, that will tell us if we need to keep going or not. Basically, right now, I'm just going to let the engine run for about 10-15 minutes in gear, and I'll come back to you guys if the engine stalls or anything like that. Okay, guys, so the engine's been running about for 15 minutes in gear, and it hasn't stalled or anything like that. So basically, what I'm going to do now is just go around the carburetor and just make sure there's no leaks. So you can see here, around the base gasket of the bowl, there's no leaks there, or around the fuel pump or anything like that. It was the one thing we were worried about. If we had to do anything with the fuel pump, it seems like it's working fine, and nothing else is leaking. You can see here, it shifts into gear really nicely. So this is forward gear. It shifts nicely into neutral pretty easily. And then also it shifts into reverse pretty nicely as well. And the kill switch does work, and when I try to refire up the engine, it starts on the very first pull. And this is what the engine will sound like when you actually have the cover on it. And it sounds really nice when the actual engine cowling is on. It doesn't rattle as much and stuff like that. So yeah, this engine runs really well, and I have no complaints on it. It revs up really nicely. It shifts in all the gears. It starts in the first pull after it's been warm. So yeah, this engine has been a really good running engine, and it's basically it for running. Okay, guys, so what we're going to do now is basically just detail this motor. You can see down here all this nasty scum line and stuff like this. I really wanted to try to get it out on the lake for you guys, but it's not going to happen with the weather, and I really want to get this video out for you guys. So we're just going to detail this, and then hopefully if it gets weather nice, I'll, take it out again and make a little short video on me running it. But basically, we're just going to detail this, get this all nice looking clean. This is just kind of a little before and after of me cleaning it. So, yeah, let's just get this clean, and then that'll be it. This is how the engine turned out after me cleaning it. It turned out looking pretty nice for, the vintage and how old this engine is. I mean, it looks pretty nice for, being an early 90s engine. Obviously, I can't get that nasty thing off the side of the engine because it's the paint off of it. But, learning it cleaned up pretty nicely, and so did the other side for the year and stuff. It's a pretty clean little Johnson 15, and, yeah, it turned out looking really nice. But that is going to wrap up the video, guys. I'm sorry I couldn't get this, engine on the lake for you guys, and I can't do all those, minor changes and adjustments on the carburetors for you guys with it under load. Hopefully I can get a video out of me taking it out, but that is going to be the end of the video. If you guys have been enjoying the videos, please smash the like button down below, and please subscribe. And I'll see you guys in the next one.